Hi, I'm Rajiv, and today I'm going to talk to you about classical music. Most of us are exposed to classical music through the media. It's often playing in the background of a commercial, or it's on the radio, or it's in an elevator. And my first notion that I consciously remember of actually thinking about classical music was when I was watching The Shawshank Redemption. And there's a scene in that movie where they're in the prison and Andy unpacks a record and he puts it on the record player and he locks the warden's door, and then he plays the record over the loudspeaker. Morgan Freeman starts narrating. I tell you, we don't know what those two Italian women were singing about, but for those few moments, we were the freest men in the world. And it was in that moment where I thought, what are they singing about? It's a Mozart opera, The Marriage of Figaro, and it was so beautiful. And that really made an impression on me. I think I saw that movie when I was 12 years old. And it planted a seed. It planted a seed of, what is this stuff? What is this genre of music? And the more research that I did to figure out what these pieces were from, often from operas, I figured out that what I really connected to was the work that was written by these composers of the 19th century. These composers that are really still famous, like Verdi and Puccini and Bellini. They all have "ini" at the end. These people wrote music that seems to have really captured the essence of the human existence. Giuseppe Verdi wrote in the 19th century. He is my all-time favorite composer, and Verdi in his day was super famous. Apparently, at the height of his career, you could write Giuseppe Verdi, Italy, on a letter and put it in the mail, and it would get to him from anywhere in the world. That's how famous he was. I live very close to a little triangular park called Verdi Square, and I didn't know about this when I moved into this apartment, but one day when I was going to the subway, I saw this statue and I went closer and I discovered that it is a statue of my favorite composer, Giuseppe Verdi. Verdi's at the top and 4 of his characters from his operas are around him below. And this statue has a beautiful history. It was commissioned by Italian Americans, and it was carved in Italy, sent over to America, and it was unveiled in October 1906. And on the morning of the unveiling, the statue was covered with a green, white, and red cloth, tethered to the ground, but held up in place with a helium balloon. The ties were cut, the balloon lifted up into the air and pulled the cloth off of the statue, and as that happened, doves flew out from underneath and flowers from the fabric cascaded onto the spectators below. This guy wrote these pieces where not only is the singing beautiful, but so much of the orchestration in his operas. It's quiet, it's simple, but it's so powerful. At the very end of the Verdi opera Aida, the Princess Aida and her lover, they have been condemned to death and they're entombed, and they sing this duet together, which I think is one of the most beautiful pieces of all of opera. And the music in that duet is so simple and it's so light. Another one of my favorite composers is Bellini, and Bellini wrote beautiful operas. He died at a very young age. I think he died when he was in his 30s. And Bellini was friends with another one of my favorite composers, Chopin, who also died prematurely. And there's an account of Chopin attending the premiere of one of Bellini's operas and actually shedding tears during one of the arias. I think I can guess which aria it was. Non Credea Mirarti si presto estinto fiore passasti al par d'amore che un giorno solo che un giorno sol durò che un giorno solo sol durò. This aria is one of my favorite pieces of music. It's so simply written and so soft, but there is this beautiful feeling of singing while asleep. There was a very famous interview of my favorite opera singer, Maria Callas. She's being interviewed by some British guy, and he asked her what one of the famous conductors taught her, Tullio Serafin. And I would love to be able to insert that clip right here, but there are rights that don't allow us to do that, so I'm just gonna reenact. What he said impressed me was, if you're ever looking for how to move on stage, if you're ever looking for a gesture, all you have to do is listen to the music. Kind of blown away because Maria Callas articulated very concisely what it was that these famous composers were really able to do. They wrote this music that truly captured the feeling of something, the feeling of the things that we all know, but we might not be able to fully express through words. How do you express that feeling of, you're so beautiful. Ugh. I can't do that with words. I've tried and it doesn't get out the feeling. So what happened at a very early age for me was I discovered that there was a song that I had in my head that did that for me. O mio Babbino, Caro. It is a silly aria which most of us have heard before. It's a young person in love and the despair of being in love, but saying in the actual aria, mi piace bello e bello. My love is beautiful, so beautiful. And this is how I feel about many dogs. When I was growing up, we had a little Shih Tzu named Misha, who we would call Bootsy. I started singing O mio Babbino Caro to Misha, but I would sing O mio Babbino Bootsy, which makes no sense. But I would sing O mio Babbino Bootsy, Bootsy è bello, bello. And that's all I needed to do. When I did that, I feel like, finally that feeling of I just want to show you how bello you are. Oh mio Babbino caro, mi piace bello e bello. When I am riding my bike around town and the moon is full, that feeling to me is one of the greatest gifts that I feel I have. To be able to see that beautiful, huge moon in the sky while I'm riding my bike underneath it. It's like a visual symphony in the sky. And then, when I see that moon, I'm looking up at it and I feel like, I just want to be able to express to you, moon, how I feel about you, how beautiful you are. Did you hear that? Does that do it? No. Oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, I love you so much. I just can't get over this. But there's a song, and it's called The Song to the Moon. and it's from the opera Rusalka, written in the 19th century by a Czech composer, Dvorak. Let me just tell you that the Song to the Moon captures the feeling of telling the moon something and speaking directly to the moon so that the moon hears you. When I'm on my bike, that's what I sing. Rusalka is basically the story of The Little Mermaid. It's the same story, and it's about a water nymph that falls in love with a prince and goes to the sea witch and asks the sea witch to turn her into a human. And what does she have to give the sea witch? Her voice. What? You're gonna give your voice away? What about the rest of the opera? This is the mastery of the musicians writing in the 19th century. Dvorak was able to write simple things for the instruments to make you really feel like clouds were passing the moon as Rusalka singing to the moon. Or, because most of the opera takes place around or in the water, he wrote orchestration that feels like water. This little tiny part in the whole opera is where it's just harp. The whole orchestra is silent and only the harp plays at this part. And it's the part when Rusalka is coming out of the water. And I feel like what Dvorak was able to so accurately do here was the feeling of bubbles, the feeling of this like mermaid coming out of the water, and you can hear and you can see. The wonderful thing is you can hear the sound of bubbles, even though bubbles don't make sounds. This is where there's the catharsis as a musician playing this instrument. Can we make it sound like bubbles? Let's see. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't that sound like bubbles? My love of this kind of music, about the music that really moves me to another level beyond words, is something that is so dear to my heart. And it's something that I really feel honored to share with other people. I play instruments and I sing solely for my own private use. There's no intention of ever performing this stuff. And maybe I can encourage you out there, if you're at all intrigued, to pick up an instrument and start learning. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.